Mike Moore Media, the first place to hear Rockingham County news and information.
Our program is sponsored by That Little Pork Shop in Eden. On our media line, Robert Hassell, Chief of Police for the City of Reidsville. Hey, Chief, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, sir. Hope you are.
I am. You're talking today about domestic violence and mental health, something that there seems to be an increase in that domestic violence side of things for sure. We're hearing more and more about that. Let's define domestic violence, Chief. What is that exactly?
Well, domestic violence can be physical, verbal, mental, spiritual, or even emotional abuse that victims experience in some kind of a relationship with another. And victims of domestic violence don't always may have bruises, but they're still considered abusers or victims of those abusers if they are experiencing any one of those previous things I just mentioned to the listeners.
Mm-hmm. And you're seeing, and I think others are as well in law enforcement, an uptick in domestic violence situations, unfortunately, and there are many causes for that, apparently.
It is, and, we saw this earlier last year. It goes up and down, an increase in the numbers of domestic violence calls that we're responding to. And, there's many factors in that, maybe, financial stresses, maybe isolation due to maybe restrictions of COVID. So there's many factors that can go into why we saw an uptick, but we have seen that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's go over maybe some of the warning signs of domestic violence, Chief, that we might need to be on the lookout for.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So if you see someone who's always checking their significant other or partner's cell phone, email, social media accounts without permission, or the person seems very jealous, they have extreme jealousy or insecurities, or constant belittling or putting down someone else that they're in a relationship with, or possibly even explosive temper. You may see that, they're calm one moment, but then all of a sudden they have that very explosive episode. Constantly making false accusations, mood swings, inflicting pain or hurt or any way on another person, possessiveness, as if like they're their property or something like that. But then telling someone what they can and can't do. And another thing, a sign that, sometimes they may not see, but it's obvious in some cases, isolation. Mm-hmm. Wanting to have them isolated from family and friends. They can't hang out with people they usually hang out with, or family they usually go and see or come over to visit. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the warning signs that someone may be an abuser, or a victim who is experiencing this may be a victim of domestic violence.
And sometimes the victim is caught up in this, and they feel they can't get out, and they're trapped, and they don't know where to go for help, or they're scared. Just scared they may be there for their life. But there is help out there, Chief.
Yes, sir, it is. And I'm so glad that you're allowing me to speak on this morning to the listeners. But, Help Incorporated, the Center Against Violence, Square One Family Justice Center, they're there to help our victims or anyone who may be going through a situation or a situation of domestic violence. By offering support, encouragement, helping them develop a safety plan. All we need is for them to contact Help Incorporated and the Square One Family Justice Center, and they can go over all of the support and the programs and resources they have available to them.
Let's give the number out right now for that, please, Chief, for Help Incorporated.
Yes, sir. The 24-hour crisis hotline is 336-342-3332. Again, that's 342-3332.
What if someone is trapped in this situation and they're being watched and there's somebody, there all the time? They can't seem to get time to contact someone. What do they do? Or how about a friend or a relative who knows there's something wrong? What can we report something like that too?
Yes, sir, and I encourage that. If you see someone you suspect they're going through domestic violence or a situation isn't right, if you can't reach that individual to offer encouragement to help them get help or come to get these services from Help Incorporated, you yourself, if you know there's something going on, you should report that to your local law enforcement here at the Reedsville Police Department, Rockingham County Sheriff's Office, whatever is in your area. Just report it to ensure that we do our part to get this person help.
Okay. I mentioned you before we started this program, Chief. I call 911 at 5:30 every morning, and every night, just about, there is a domestic situation of some kind. There were two last night, one in Reedsville, one in Stokesdale, but that seems to be a common occurrence. And I know you've had some situations that you've dealt with recently too, and this has been right in the forefront there.
Yes, sir, it has. And many times, domestic violence situations can escalate to where they become extremely violent, where either the victim is hurt to a very extreme level, or even officers who are getting involved trying to calm the situation and de-escalate the situation get injured. So that's why it's highly important, first and foremost, to get victims help, get them connected to the services that are there to help them get out of that situation and hopefully provide them the courage to do so. And then, of course, as all else, if someone sees someone experiencing or going through a situation like this, I cannot say it enough. I encourage you to do your part and to call someone to get them help. Call your local law enforcement, call the Reedsville Police Department so that we can go and assess and see what's going on and connect them to the resources. Because I cannot stress how valuable the partnership with Help Incorporated, the Square One Family Justice Center is. They provide a valuable service to our community, and I just want everyone, all of your listeners, to know that if you know someone, please make sure they get that number to the 24-hour hotline that I previously mentioned. I'm going to say it one more time, 336-342-3332.
Oh, they have helped so many people over the years. That organization been here in Rockingham County for such a long time, and we certainly appreciate them. The laws have changed, Chief. What can you do and can't you do if you're called to a home and there's a domestic violence situation?
Well, the first and foremost, when our officers respond, the first duty is to ensure that we de-escalate the situation, separate all the parties involved. And then that is when the officers begin their investigative process, start examining, interviewing, speaking with everyone, and then hopefully our officers can identify, was there an aggressor? Are there signs that some kind of assault has occurred? Are there children present? But during that investigation, if an officer has deemed it necessary, they see signs of abuse, they see signs that there was some kind of struggle or violence in that home, then, 50B laws are much stronger today than they were 15, 20, 30 years ago. And the officers are trained to act and to deal with that situation. And if that means the aggressor goes away in handcuffs, then that is what's going to happen if that's what it takes to keep this person safe and take them out of that violent situation. Then we do what we can to make sure we connect that person with these services with Help Incorporated, the Square One Family Justice Center, so they can give them that valuable support that they're going to need as they go through something like this. As Chief of Police, many people may look at me and don't know the things I've been through, but, I recall as a child growing up in a violent home and seeing domestic violence personally. My mom endured that, and the police was called. And many times they did walk away, but they did not take my father away, which he needed to be. Mm-hmm. But today, that's not going to happen in many cases. If my officers go to a call and they see there's a situation that needs to be handled, they're going to handle that, because the goal is to protect the victim in that situation and to make sure they're safe.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing it with us, Chief. Tied in with this are mental health issues. Let's talk about some mental health warning signs. You have a list of those.
Yes, sir. This is a big topic that, we don't need to lose focus and remember there are still individuals in our community who are suffering, who are going through crises that's related to mental health. Some of the signs to look out for, the sadness lasting more than a few days, thoughts of harming themselves or others, low self-esteem, anger, anxiety, mood swings, lack of interest in activities that used to usually give them comfort they enjoyed, grief, excessive behaviors, or compulsiveness. So if you see these signs in a family, a loved one, or a friend, or just someone in the community, I encourage and implore you to please make sure we contact the appropriate authorities and get them help. And, you know, here in Reedsville and Rockingham County, we got great partners in this area of mental health. You know, Cardinal Innovations, the Mobile Crisis Unit, Daymart Recovery Services, both do a superb job in providing mental health services to those in need throughout Rockingham County.
Let's give that number for the suicide prevention lifeline number there, Chief, because unfortunately we're seeing that as a continuing, increasing issue too, it seems like. But it's good to have that number handy, isn't it?
It is. It's very good to have it handy. If someone may be having thoughts and they need to reach out to someone, there's a suicide prevention lifeline, and that number is 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-8255. And again, that's a 24-hour suicide prevention lifeline for anyone who may need to call that number.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, domestic violence and things we're talking about today, Chief, your subject all around us, and maybe more than we realize. It's almost like drug problems. You think, well, that's not my problem, but it's out there and it's all around us more than we know, isn't it?
It is. And I wanted to draw attention to this because it's not just a Reedsville issue. It's a community issue. It's a statewide issue. You know, these things happen any and everywhere. But I wanted to draw attention to it because, one, I know there's people here who need help. They need the use of these services. But also it helps us by raising the awareness on both mental health and domestic violence, because it's a way also to help reduce the likelihood of violence when police respond to certain situations. It's preventative. Because sometimes we respond to situations that may escalate to a standoff or some situation that could have possibly have been prevented if someone had just reached out and got someone help.
Sure. Okay, help is there in so many ways right here locally. Let's give that contact information again, Chief.
Yes, sir. For domestic violence, you can call the Health Incorporated Center Against Violence Square One Family Justice Center 24 Crisis Hotline at 336-342-3332. And then, of course, a 24-hour suicide prevention lifeline is 1-800-273-8255.
Okay. Well, there's so many ways to get help. Please, if you are listening and you're in that situation, help is there for you. Or if you know someone, please use these numbers. Chief, always important information from you. I appreciate these monthly visits. Anything? We got about 30 seconds left if you'd like to wrap up.
I would just like to tell all our listeners, please, you can get more detailed information off of the Reedsville Police Department Facebook page, our social media account, or if you're on the Nextdoor app, please look up the Reedsville Police Department. This information and for this valuable service has been shared.
Chief, thank you as always. I appreciate that information. Have a good weekend. We'll talk next month.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
That's Reedsville Police Chief Robert Hassell. Our program is sponsored by That Little Pork Shop in Uptown Eden on Monroe Street. You can start out with those great appetizers and lots of sides, barbecue, a lot more than just barbecue there at That Little Pork Shop. Sandwiches. I love their burgers. We just did takeout the other night. Oh, it was so good. A favorite of folks from all over Rockingham County. Check them out on Facebook for their menu, hours, photos, upcoming events, and things they're involved in at That Little Pork Shop in Uptown Eden. Again, more information available on what we're talking about on the Facebook page for the Reedsville Police Department. So please visit that. Lots of events and timely information on that. They keep that current and updated all the time. And I remind you also to please go to riseupreedsville.com.